Welcome to the Ben and Lauren Show. I'm Ben, and here's Lauren, and here we are. Saturday night.
It's been 2 weeks.
It's been 2 weeks. We do that a lot.
Well, it's been a very long 2 weeks.
So I can definitely say the most interesting thing that happened this week, or last week.
It was last week.
We had a baby.
Finally. She was 17 days late.
It's a girl, Rebecca Patience Turner. Was it 8 pounds, 12 ounces?
Yeah, that sounds about right. But I never did hear her length. I still have no clue.
So we're doing the show in here because if Rebecca wakes up, she's right here. So we can get her and not have to walk halfway across the house.
Well, also, all of our kids are sick. So if we do the show in the living room and all the lights are on, we are more likely to have somebody come wandering out at some point. They're not sleeping as soundly as usual.
We have this strange phenomenon whenever we mention we're doing the Ben and Lauren Show, they get all distraught. We're not entirely sure why. I think they want to be in the Ben and Lauren Show.
I think that's part of it. They don't like it that we do it without them. I think tonight they were too tired to care. They're pretty miserable right now. Yeah.
So everybody has a cold. I had a cold. I think I'm sort of over it at this point. You haven't gotten it.
Not yet, although I can't understand how I possibly would miss getting it at this point.
So all of our children, including our new little Rebecca, has this cold, and it's just awful.
Yeah, it starts off like it's not very much of anything, and then it just keeps going and getting worse and worse by the day. And then I think it's like in 2 phases. They get a cold that doesn't seem like much of anything, and then a few days later they get a lot sicker. So
they kind of get the symptoms of a fever without the fever.
Yeah, it's very strange. They'll complain about being achy and that their legs don't feel good and all this stuff, and you'll feel them and they're completely cool. There's no fever at all. I don't understand it. I've never seen that one before. But,
we're mystified.
Whatever the case, we've been up a lot because we've had multiple kids up.
Mm-hmm.
And Rebecca has had a lot of trouble breathing. Not trouble to the point where I would take her to the hospital or anything. She's handling it fine, but she doesn't know how to breathe through her mouth. She
doesn't know to breathe through her mouth, so when her nose is congested, she just works really hard at breathing through her nose.
She tries to clear her nose really hard.
And you can hear her.
Like that.
I just heard her now. She kind of has this little infant snore,
Yeah, a little snuffle.
Little whistling sound she makes when she breathes.
So we jumped to the end of the story, in a way, because what happened was after we did our last show.
What did we talk about our last show? Waiting. The wait was finally over.
Well, but not quite, because the week after we did our last show was the one where we had labor on and off all week. And it's the first time we've ever called the midwives out, and we did not have a baby. And people would say that was false labor. It's my 5th labor, guys.
It was real labor. It just was premature.
It was real labor. It just stopped.
Yep.
And it stopped for 4 days. So we had serious labor Monday night.
Basically, we had a scenario where she went into labor, and it was so strong that we called the midwife, and we were just thinking we were going to have the baby really quickly. And even the midwife, what's her name who came out?
Amy.
She sounded like she was, she believed us. She should.
Well, this is our 5th baby.
So we were quite surprised when everything stopped.
All of a sudden, everything just stopped.
So basically, the midwives slept on the couch. Lauren slept in the bed. And around 8 o'clock, everyone went home. Nothing happened.
Well, we know nothing's happening, and if something does happen later, I fully expected everyone to be able to come back later that day, and then there was nothing that day.
We had everything ready. The pool was ready. All the supplies were out. Everything was ready to go.
Physically, it was not actually all that hard. Mentally, I had quite a difficult time by the time we got to Thursday.
Well, what was frustrating is that labor started, and it just never completed.
Well, to me, what was difficult is maintaining being ready for that long.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd already, every night we'd go to bed and we'd try to make sure everything was all ready. So if we needed to, call everyone out and get everything ready in the middle of the night. We had things set. So that had gone on since we came in the house from Sukkot, so it had already been almost 2 weeks from Sukkot.
Right. And then we had an extra 4 days on top of that.
Then we had 4 days where we knew that baby was imminent.
Any day.
I
kept saying any day now. Before daybreak, sometime tonight, sometime tomorrow morning.
Don't say it anymore. Just stop.
I was proven wrong time and time again. But at some point, we just sort of knew that the baby had to come out.
Well, that's just... Of course the baby has to come out at some time.
So the second time around, we called the midwives and we knew that this was the real deal.
Well, finally, late Thursday night, I had not had, everyone would ask me all week, well, aren't you having any contractions, anything? It's like, I'm not sure people really know how the whole contraction thing works.
No.
But basically, at the end of pregnancy, people have contractions constantly, little ones, and that doesn't necessarily mean anything much is happening.
But when they get strong.
But people kept asking me all week, isn't there anything? And I'm like, well, of course there's something, but there really wasn't anything that was going on that was real progressive. But then Thursday night I could tell that, yeah, we have something finally going on.
So Thursday night was when it started getting interesting. Was it around midnight?
Yeah, and then I stayed up till like 3 a.m. I told you might as well sleep, but I figured things would, keep going. But basically, we were looking at contractions every 9 or 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And that,
What time did we call Goldie the second time?
Well, the second time we called her out was 7:45 in the morning. But by 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm like, well, this could go on for a long time. I'm going to bed.
Mm-hmm.
We've had, at this point, 3 22-hour labors. And when you have a 22-hour labor, you have to treat it like running a marathon. You can't just stay up because you're so excited that the baby's going to be born. You really better go take a nap.
And you did.
So
Made
I went
things
to
a
bed,
lot easier.
and Daniel got up like about 7:30 in the morning.
I remember that.
And I asked you if you could take him back to bed because he wanted me to nurse him, and I didn't want to nurse him because I knew that baby was going to be born sometime soon, and I didn't want to feed all the baby's milk to Daniel. He would have drunk it all. So Ben took Daniel back to bed, and then you came back to bed, and then I had a very, very strong contraction. That was kind of what I was waiting for.
Baby was pretty much born an hour later, wasn't it?
Half an hour
later?
That was at 7:45.
That's when I called the midwife.
And
the second time.
That time, I think that's when the water broke. Was that one.
It was when the water broke that we called.
That's when we called. We said, okay, we're going to have a baby now. So Ben started filling up the pool. And as with Daniel, I knew that that pool wasn't going to get filled in time. That baby was going to be born very quickly now. So with Daniel, I'd been really concerned that he was going to be born before anyone got there. And with this baby, for some reason, I just didn't care. It's like, if the baby's born before anyone else shows up, tough.
So we had an exciting moment when Lauren essentially went into labor and the baby just started coming out.
No, that was about half an hour later. Nobody was here yet. It was just you.
Baby was coming out.
All our kids were sound asleep. It was very dark that morning. It was very cloudy, so they were sleeping.
And for a few seconds I'm thinking, oh no, the midwife's not here. But then I thought,
well, I remember
the
telling
baby will come out.
I felt one of the... there's a distinct change between one type of contraction and the kind where the baby is going to come out now. And I told you, okay, this baby's coming down. And you're like, well, there's nobody here. And I said, well, you might want to put an apron on.
So I put an apron on and I said, I guess I'm delivering a baby.
Ben always dresses nicely because he knows everyone's going to take a million pictures. So he had like a
I learned from previous experiences that you want to dress kind of nice because everyone's going to take pictures.
Well, this could get messy. So he rolled his sleeves all up and he put an apron on. And basically, we had a baby's head partway delivered, and I didn't realize Goldie was here.
Basically, Goldie opened up the door. Our midwife opened up the door and heard me saying, Lauren, I see the head. So she knew.
So she hustled through the kitchen.
Yeah, she knew.
But we had that baby
fast.
Pretty much delivered or halfway delivered by the time she came in the room. And I think she was here for maybe a minute and a half.
Rebecca was born very, very
all the way
quickly.
born.
And we didn't even have a name picked out when the baby was born.
Nope.
We just kind of came up with it in an hour or so. The first hour baby was around.
Yeah, people kept asking us what's her name, and we're like, well, we haven't decided yet.
So because of the amount of patience it took those last 4 days when everything sort of stopped and we just wanted it to go, that's where the
couple
name,
weeks.
And the weeks that she was late, we named her Rebecca Patience. Seems quite appropriate, at least for us.
It's funny because this is probably, I would say, the most controlled I've been during delivery, because it was just you and me, so we were talking about what we were doing.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's different when the midwife's not around.
When it's just us.
Because it's just us. And there's something kind of special about it just being us, because when the midwife's here, the midwife kind of takes... She's Goldie's fairly hands-off, but the midwife...
you let her take control, because that's her...
That's her specialty.
It's her specialty, is why we have her here.
And when you have a midwife present, she's there for a reason. And, so... she's not bossy. It's not like she gets in the way of things.
You're going, well, I should put you in a better position. This is not a good position for this baby to be born in. And I'm like, well, at this point, Ben, I can't move.
It worked.
Sorry.
Now, Goldie said it was a perfect position. That's what she said.
I just remember you had a little bit of concern. You were going, I think you should move into a different spot. I'm like, sorry, can't.
It's probably for the best, because, the position you were in was probably better than I would have come up with anyway.
Well.
Anyway.
It was a very interesting delivery. I don't think we've ever had one quite like that, although it was a little bit like Daniel's.
And Rebecca was born very, very quickly.
I just remember when her head was delivered, and you were looking at her, because it took another minute before the rest of her was born, and you were saying to me, you said, it's a girl. And I
said it looks like a girl.
How can you tell it's a girl? And you said, I can tell by her face.
Yeah, I looked at her face and I knew it was a girl. And I could have been wrong, but I was not wrong. It was a girl.
Well, she's very tiny, tiny, delicate features. She's very, her head is small. I mean, it actually technically measures the same as some of our other kids. It's about 13 inches.
But her features are very small.
Her features are tiny. She's got this tiny, tiny little rosebud mouth.
And she's not a small baby, but she feels so light.
What's funny is she actually is tied for one of our biggest babies.
She
and Daniel are the same weight.
You wouldn't think it. You know what it is? It's because we have older babies and they're heavy. So I pick up this newborn. I'm like, this is it?
Well, I think she was about 9 pounds when she was born.
That's about Abigail's size.
No, Abigail was only 8'4" or something.
8'4".
She was 8'8".
8'8".
So about 8.5. Daniel was 8'12". By the time we weighed Rebecca, she was 8'12", but that's because she'd had several poopy diapers at that point.
Yeah.
She lost ounces in that time.
Yep. So that is our newest addition to the Turner family. We now have 5 children. We're a family of 7, and it's pretty wonderful.
Well, and then 3 hours after she was born is when we started noticing that our kids were getting sick. So we had no break between birth and then coming down with a cold.
And it has not been very fun, the whole sickness going through the family.
It's not fun, but it is a blip. It'll pass.
Yeah. How are you feeling?
Pretty good.
I'm feeling okay. I feel tired. Probably because it's 11:30.
My neck is really sore from trying to get Rebecca to. She doesn't want to sleep in her bed because she can't breathe, so she wants me to hold her all night. That can make you sleep in some really peculiar positions.
Yeah, I would imagine. So what kind of props do we have this show? We always get requests for props.
Well, we got a book in the mail.
So a book came called The Unexpected Cosmology by Noel J. Hadley. And as you can see, we are just starting it. We made it through the first section of the first prologue. We haven't even gotten to chapter 1 yet. But as you can see, it's a pretty thick book.
It's a book about people who have come to the conclusion that the earth is perhaps not exactly as we've been taught it is.
Basically talking about a biblical cosmology as opposed to the mainstream science cosmology that we're accustomed to.
But it's a book about why people might have started thinking that. Because most, in this day and age, if you come to the conclusion that the earth might not be a globe, it might be something different, that is, I think, probably one of the most offensive things you can suggest in our society today.
It is.
So for someone to come to that conclusion is a pretty difficult thing, and it doesn't happen lightly, and it doesn't happen easily. And there is a very quickly growing number of people who are reaching that conclusion.
And it's growing exponentially. Right now, it's still kind of fringe, but it's just growing and growing and growing. And give it a generation, and it's just going to become the norm someday. It's hard to believe right now. It's just really hard to believe right now. But give it 1 or 2 generations. That's all it takes.
But this particular book is the story of various people and how they've reached that conclusion. And whether you agree with them or not, most people think that if you come to a conclusion like that, you're basically crazy.
Pretty much.
Nobody gets up in the morning and decides they want to think this.
No. So it's been an interesting read so far. We haven't gotten very far, but we follow Noel Hadley on social media, so it's kind of neat interacting with him and talking. And
he's an interesting man.
He's an interesting man, and he puts little excerpts of his books, and he does audio versions occasionally. I think he's there's a conference coming up in a couple days he's actually speaking at, which pretty interesting. So we're happy to have his book, and we'll eventually make our way through it. It'll make for good conversation, I'm sure.
Well, apparently I fell asleep while you were reading last night, but that's not the fault of the book. That's the fault of too many nights not sleeping.
Well, the chapter I'm reading right now has a bunch of Russian names, and I'm having trouble pronouncing them. I feel like skipping over all the names and just...
Maybe you can assign him new ones. Fred.
Fred. Fyodorov. Fyodorov.
See, I've read Alexander Solzhenitsyn's books.
Solzhenitsyn.
Yeah.
Solzhenitsyn.
Well, after going through some of those books, you start pronouncing those names in your head for a while, and I've sort of become more accustomed to them.
I have a hard time saying them.
Well, he wrote The Gulag Archipelago. I think that's how you say that. That book has got to be every bit of this thick.
So it's Fyodorov, and what was the other guy's name? There's 2 names that I was having trouble with. Oh,
like
Tsiolkovsky.
I think you say that. Sikorski. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just too many letters. I'm reading it, and there's all these letters in a row, and I'm like, how do I say that?
He wants to buy a vowel.
So that was one of our props. The other one are these. These are silver quarters. And the reason I have silver quarters as a prop is I created my first token today. I'm pretty excited about that.
Ben's now the proud owner of a new cryptocurrency. You can add it to the other 10,000 on the market.
So I created a cryptocurrency that's backed by actual silver coins, which is kind of neat.
That's how fiat money is supposed to work.
That's how it's supposed to work. But listen to that sound here. Nice. It's probably recording really nicely from that.
It's probably blowing everybody's eardrums out.
Oh, maybe. So what I did was I offered a what's called a silver penny. So I divided these quarters into 24 tokens apiece, 25 tokens apiece. And you can buy these tokens. You collect 25 of them. You can redeem them for a silver quarter. Pretty simple. And I'm selling them a little bit over spot, and then as they sell out, they get a little more expensive as they go along. And if demand is high enough and people are interested enough, then they'll keep buying them and make my way through a whole bag. There's about 40 of them in here. So I'm exchanging cryptocurrency Steam for the silver coins. Kind of neat. So that's the story. It's nothing exciting.
He says, kind of neat, nothing exciting, but he's been very excited about it, and he's been working on
It's
it all
my
evening.
first cryptocurrency I've created. How cool is that? I get to determine how many. I can mint more if I want to. But I won't. I only do so much at one time because they are backed. They are actually backed by something.
It's a pretty good learning thing to do. Even if it doesn't do much, it's definitely an interesting thing to try.
Well, learning how to get the word out, learning how to market it a bit, how to talk to people about it, how to know what price structure to set it at, how to come up with a game plan so that everything's known ahead of time. You're not flying by the seat of your pants. A lot of people do that. It's disastrous. You can't make this stuff up as you're going along. And you can't change the rules. Everything has to be very set and explained. Full disclosure. Because people do not like surprises.
Now, you made this one fairly simple.
I made it as simple as I could. Basically, 40 silver coins is 1,000 silver pennies. Virtual silver pennies. So I minted 1,000 silver pennies, and they're all on the market right now. You can buy them right now. They're about a little under 1 steam a piece. Which works out perfectly. That's about what it works out to be.
We were reading, quite a while back, we read out loud the Creature of Jekyll Island.
Mm-hmm.
And
we didn't make it all the way through, but
we were close to all the way through. And one of the chapters talked about banks that actually had issued fiat money that was backed. Excuse me, I got this. I wasn't yawning until we started doing this.
Me too.
But there has been banks in the past where they were very scrupulously careful to keep all their money backed by currency, and those banks were very stable for quite some time. And what happened, like to the one that was the most stable, is there was a war that wiped it out.
Pretty much.
But
well, if you think about it,
it's interesting inventing your own money, though. And
the banks that actually have, like, for example, the crypto I created is backed by these tokens, and they're not going anywhere. These are in a bag.
Quarters?
The quarters, rather. These quarters are not going anywhere. They're in a bag, and I'm considering these all already sold. You know, even though I haven't sold the token yet, I'm assuming that eventually they'll all get sold out, and I'll get cryptocurrency as an exchange.
But if you were like banks, you'd take that money and you'd buy an investment with it. And if somebody tried to cash in to get their silver quarter, you'd say, no, you can't have it. But the real reason is because you didn't have it anymore.
Right. So I'm not allowing any redemptions until next year. So that gives time for the tokens to get circulated out there and people exchanging it and encouraging people to actually hold on to them. But after the new year, if they want to redeem their tokens for actual silver coins, they can. I think I'm going to charge a little bit in freight, maybe not. I mean, a couple steam to have it mailed out to them and get their address and mail it out. And I'm going to burn the tokens. If they redeem them, I'm going to burn them and make them so they don't exist anymore. And there's only ever going to be 100,000 of these tokens ever minted possible. It's impossible to have more than 100,000 of them. And I'll probably not even mint that many because I don't have that much silver to sell.
So this is Ben's project, I think. He's been thinking it over for a while.
Mm-hmm. I was going to do dimes, but I decided quarters would be better. What are you laughing at?
I think it's funny that you've had this whole project cooking up in your brain, and I just found out about it this evening.
Yeah. I've been cooking up this idea for over a year, and I didn't want to talk about it till I had it all sort of sorted out.
Oh.
And the nice thing is when you think about something for a long time, then when you execute it, you just execute it, and it's not a big deal. You can do it in one night. I think I've heard that before, where if you really want something to go well, you plan and plan and plan and plan and plan, and then you just execute it.
Well, that's often what I do.
Yeah.
Like, if I want to, before I make dinner in the evening, to get dinner done, I've thought about it during the day, about what exactly I'm going to do.
Mm-hmm.
I usually plan things out in my head before I start working on them, because I don't have time to figure them out once you get going.
Yeah.
So, do we have anything else going on this week?
Well,
that was pretty much it.
We do have a big event happening next week. I have my first training session.
That did happen after we spoke.
And
after we did our
that's a
last
long
show.
story.
That was a good story, but that's probably too long for tonight.
Yeah. Maybe the next Ben and Lauren show.
Ben's going to be going in for sales training.
Yeah, basically sales training.
Special sales training.
And not sales training on how to sell tokens.
No, sales training that we're hoping will be significantly beneficial to getting our business going.
Yep.
A little better.
Mm-hmm.
Because we've come to the conclusion that if you own your own business, it really doesn't matter what you do or what you sell. The biggest thing you have to do is sell.
Sell. You have to sell. Like, for example, I dropped out of college. My parents, they kind of were encouraging, what school do you want to go to? What big school do you want to go to? And I never decided. I didn't want to be in school. When I graduated high school, I wanted to get out.
Yeah, this sweatshirt says Hillsdale College.
It says Hillsdale College on it.
This is because his grandparents lived in the town with
Right.
Hillsdale College.
I never actually attended Hillsdale College, but I got the shirt. It's cool. It's a very good school. Anyway, so I went to community college, and I hated it, dropped out. I mean, I did embarrassingly poorly at community college because I just didn't care, didn't want to be there. And got a job working at Best Buy and was in sales. And that began my big sales career. And then I worked at Gateway for a number of years, and that was really more hardcore sales. And then I got tired of sales. So when Gateway closed, I was unemployed for a time, and then I started going back to school, went to Bigger College.
Which is a trade college.
It's a trade school.
It's not.
And as the final, to get your associate's degree, you had to get an internship with a company to get the credits. So I started working with an internet company that did my dad's website. And I was not going to continue working with him, but I figured there was good opportunity, so I ended up working with him, how many years? 4 years? More than that.
Well,
7 years? 2007?
You
8, 9,
stopped
10,
working there
11,
at the end of 2014?
12, 13, 14. That was 7 years. I worked there 7 years. That's a long time.
But at the end of 2014 was when they didn't have enough work that we could really support our family and continue working there.
So the ironic thing is that I wanted a job where it didn't involve sales. I wanted a desk job where I just did a task, and the task was done, and I got compensated for it, paid for it. That's what I wanted to do. But especially when you work for a small company, it's sales.
Well, and here's the thing. You could go out and get a job like that, but it would require you to be gone from home. The only way you can be home is if you have your own business. And
Correct.
If you have your own business, whatever it is you do, you have to sell it.
So my dad's probably wanted me to work with him for a long time, and but I always explained to him I didn't want to do sales.
And that's mostly what Dad does.
And mostly the business is going to be sales.
Product.
You have to sell stuff. So I think my dad, when I gave that response, pretty much felt that meant that I was disqualified from working this job.
Well, it did disqualify you from working that job if that was true.
So many years later, when I came to Dad and said, Dad, I think I want to work with you. And he says, well, what about sales? I said, well, what about sales? I'm going to have to do it. So I've been self-taught because the type of sales that I'm in now are unlike any other sales that I've ever been in my life.
Well, your dad has worked with you also.
He has. He's worked with me quite a bit.
So,
and I've learned a tremendous amount from him. But one thing I want to become, or I have to become proficient at, is sales.
and selling without doing unpaid consulting.
And that's the big thing, is unpaid consulting.
And this is what has been the sticking point, is that you spend so much time, you and Dad, doing unpaid consulting, that by the time you actually sell some product, a great deal of the value of what you have generated has been given away for free.
Yeah, people are always mining for free information. And any free information anyone's willing to give, they'll take. And it's just in our nature to give away free information.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not because we don't value the information, we don't value ourselves, if that makes any sense. So that's one of the lessons I think we're going to have to learn, is valuing our knowledge and our skills and our information, even if it's just a phone number, even if it's just a reference. It's valuable. And we need to, as part of our business strategy, we have to somehow work that into the business structure.
Right.
So all that to say, I signed up for sales training, and it's going to start next week on Wednesday. And I'm kind of nervous about it, actually.
I don't think you should be nervous about it.
It's early in the morning. It's an hour's drive. People I've never met before. Environment I'm not used to. Just, you know.
But it was quite a meeting that you had with the man who basically owns the company that does the training. And he met with you and your mom and dad on my birthday, which was the Monday that...
It was a pretty remarkable meeting. It was a pretty remarkable situation altogether.
And so basically it had to be a family decision between Ben and his parents. Should we take the plunge of... Should they take the plunge, I say we, of financially going ahead with this.
And it's not inexpensive.
To go ahead with this and for the purpose of pulling the company, as you put it, off life support.
Yeah.
So that the company has been having difficulty.
Well, I basically said...
Something has to give to make it...
My mom asked me, okay, what is plan B? And I've always told her there is no plan B.
You mean if working with your dad didn't work out?
Yeah, if working with my dad didn't work out, what's your plan B? And I said, there is no plan B. So ultimately I said, well, at this point, this is plan B.
We've always thought that, Ben, if it did not succeed to work with your dad, it is possible for you to go get a job from somewhere else. You'd be able to do it. You'd make a living at doing it. But we would not then have an easy time bringing you back home.
Mm-hmm. Because
you'd be spending your time and energy working away from home. So to start a new business on top of that would bring you back home would be very difficult. And so we're in a position now where you can build a business where we can continue to have the kind of life that we envision where we're doing things together.
And what's interesting is my dad qualified me because he was asking me questions about what does Lauren think? I thought you were a family man. How are you going to be okay being outside, doing outside sales, making sales calls?
Right.
And I had to say, well, I don't have much of a choice.
Well, the alternative is you're going to be outside full time.
And the idea is to...
Without building your own business.
And really what it comes down to is if I'm more successful in the sales that I do, it allows me to be with my family more.
Right.
If I'm wasting my time going door to door and just getting rejected all the time, and there's no problem with that. Sometimes you have to do stuff like that. But I could not imagine doing that indefinitely, forever.
But here's the thing. You and I want to build a future where we are together, where you are home, and we have the best shot at doing that by making this succeed, by making the company, your and Dad's company, succeed.
Right.
So we have to take the best shot we can at making that happen.
And choose an actual direction and focus all the attention in that one direction.
So that's what we're attempting to move forward with right now, and so you're going to go in for training.
Yep. So that's really the big event this week. Well, besides the baby being born last week.
it's been quite a couple of weeks.
What's funny is when we scheduled the meeting,
you figured it'd be well outside when the baby was going
I
to be born.
I did not think the baby, because Rebecca hadn't even been born yet when we had the meeting. It was the following night.
No. That's when we had the false labor incident.
We had the false labor.
Was the following night, and then she was born the Friday after that.
Yeah.
So she made it all the way to November. I was expecting a middle of October
that's
baby.
Right, November 1st.
And she was born November 1st. So we actually have 2 November babies now.
11-1.
Yep, we have Rebecca and Daniel are now both in November.
And what date was Daniel?
The 23rd.
23rd.
He's going to be 2 in a couple weeks. So.
Yeah, he's acting like a 2-year-old.
Well, how does a 2-year-old act?
I don't know. Just, he's got the 2-year-old.
They speak more?
They just, yeah. So, anyway, that has been our week and our upcoming week. We'll see how... There's a bit more to the story, but we won't go into all that. It was good. It was a good meeting.
Yep.
And so what else is there?
Well, should I get Rebecca out of bed and show her to the camera?
She's sleeping. I don't know if that's a good idea. See, now if we were live, we can ask the audience. Should we wake up the baby?
I did make a little video of her earlier this evening.
Okay.
She is sound asleep in the video, but I did make one.
We can post the video underneath that. you know.
She's very snuffly.
Yeah.
It's kind of pitiful to hear her. She really snuffles a lot. But
so there's been the Torah portions. It's been a little bit odd. Last night we read 2 Torah portions in a row, and it was long. We went all the way from Noah's flood. Well, actually, it's not Noah's flood; it's God's flood. But it went all the way from the flood to
the birth of Ishmael. No, the whole
circumcision
of Abraham
and Ishmael. just before Isaac's birth. So that's a big chunk of time.
That was a long time.
That's a lot of story.
It was a long Torah portion. I had little kids who were kind of miserable, who were just kind of laying on me.
And then I read Noel Hadley's book that night too. So I did a lot of reading that.
Yep.
Last night.
You did.
And a lot of reading today. So I think with that, we're going to call it an evening. It's about 35 minutes.
I think we're too tired to talk about the Torah portion.
There'll always be other opportunities. So for now, we're going to say good night. And Lauren, say good night, Lauren.
Good night, Lauren.
Bye-bye.